Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. I am your host, the fellow KGB. We are joined tonight by John Heffernon. We're going to be hanging out, doing our Tuesday night hangout. We have a couple injuries and some things to get into, but for the most part, man, John, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good. I've somehow avoided this injury plague, but it seems like it's coming for everybody, and my time will come soon enough, I'm sure.
And of course, the big news was Jamal Murray torn ACL. This happened last night, but the news was like official today. So this one's a tough one, and I got some people in the chat room here asking who is going to be the guy that we should be picking up. There's a couple of interesting options here. Actually, I'm gonna change our filters here just and go to Denver right away. So I picked up Facundo Campazzo. I don't like he's only got 2 games. Like Denver's only got a couple games this week. But long term, I don't know if Monte Morris might be the pickup here. PJ Dozier. Is there anybody here that you think like gets the biggest bump with Jamal Murray out for the year?
I'm surprised that Dozier's listed as a point guard. I mean, I haven't watched a million Denver games, but I'm pretty sure he plays like small forward wing, kind of like the Barton position. Yeah, Campazzo, Morris, they stand to gain a lot of extra minutes. What they're going to do with them, I think I probably like Campazzo a little more. But Denver really, Denver likes both of these players. Campazzo's new this season. Previously, Morris kind of held down their backup point guard spot. But I think both of them are going to play. I think both of them are going to be better. Is one of them going to dominate and take over? That's a really interesting question. If I had to bet on one of them, I would bet on Campazzo, but it's kind of a crapshoot more than anything.
And if I remember correctly, there were like Facundo had a run in like February. He was just putting up a lot of numbers. So he has like when he gets minutes, he has been productive. If you look at his last 5 games where he gets over 20 minutes, he's got a couple floor games here, 12, 15, and 19. But I'm just looking at him hopefully averaging somewhere around 24 points. Hopefully for the rest of the season, getting these averages here. If you look at the last 7 days, he's been averaging 25 minutes per game, 8 points, couple of rebounds, a few assists, and some steals, and the block every now and then. But I think he's going to be the guy that like directly moves into the starting lineup. I was looking at their depth chart earlier today with this news. Let me go to this, and they moved him right into there. So
yeah,
of course would be the primary backup. So I do think if you're looking for somebody, I don't think maybe this week. If you're looking week to week, maybe he's not your guy. But if you're looking long term, this is the guy that you're looking for. So just based on the week 16 schedule here, Denver only 3 games this week, and they played last night. So so not the best like in terms of short term, but you look after this week, Denver plays 4 games the rest of the way every week. So I do like him as a long term hold here. But I don't know. Any other like final thoughts on Denver? Does this hurt Jokic? To me, my head went off and said Michael Porter Jr. is going to be a beast. He's going to get some shots, like a lot of shot attempts. But I don't know. Final thoughts on Denver? Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I mean, Porter Jr. definitely is the name that comes to mind. Gordon, perhaps, as well. Murray is, he's ball handling and he's shooting. So I think Porter Jr. kind of fits that missing piece, that what's missing there a little more. But Porter Jr. He hasn't shown it all quite yet. I think he's got what it takes, but he's still pretty young. I'm not sure if he can pull it off, but he's having a great year, and perhaps this could be kind of what jettisons him to. He's having a good year, and this could be what jettisons him to a great year. So, I think he's the guy that if you could buy low right now, if your trade deadline hasn't passed or anything, he's probably the guy I would try to snag from Denver. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this hurts Jokic. In fact, it somehow could potentially help him. Maybe a couple of his easier assists will go away, but he's so creative as a passer. I think he's still going to maintain really good assists. And, this is potentially going to force his hand to be more of a scorer, even more of a focal point of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
There's, just look at this right now. You see multiple games on his, stat on the past, month, give or take, where he's got, points in the teens.
Mm-hmm.
If Denver wants to compete, that's probably not just, he's gonna have to bump those offensive scoring numbers up. So there's a chance this could actually help Jokic, in my opinion. But at worst, I don't think it changes him at all. Still a super stud. So I think Porter's probably the most interesting piece in Denver, and then follow that up by the two backup point guards, Morris and Campazzo, who we just talked about. Gordon, maybe, but there's not a lot of overlap between Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray. So I don't think he's going to add much. But again, I mean, Murray's off the court for, there's 30 extra minutes available and a lot of shooting and scoring within those minutes. So, anyone who can pick up the slack is, Denver might even modify their offense a little bit as a result of this loss. So I would just keep an eye on the team this week and next week and see what the heck, how it all shakes out.
And keep an eye on Will Barton, too. He's been a pretty consistent veteran. He doesn't have like a really high ceiling, but his floors are pretty nice. So I did want to go back and look at, because I did see like James Wiseman also done for the year. I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else that just recently got diagnosed with some bad news here. But Murray for sure, Beasley, of course. I don't know what's up with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but Wiseman is done for this season. I'm trying to see if anybody else here. We have a question on when Jarrett Allen is coming back. I thought I heard tomorrow. Thought I heard tomorrow for Jarrett Allen. Let me see if I can find him on the list here.
The injury apocalypse, my goodness.
Yeah, it's like a never-ending kick in the balls. Why isn't Jarrett Allen showing up here? Did he get lifted off the?
Hey, I just saw him. If you scroll down a little more, or you just have him.
Afro. Okay. So he went through practice on Tuesday. He remains questionable for Wednesday, but he's a good chance. If he doesn't play Wednesday, I would assume that maybe the next game he's going to be back. So this is the week that he should be returning to the floor. That's probably going to eat into some of the other Cavaliers' big guys' minutes. So if you've been holding on to Jarrett Allen, it's going to be sometime this week, I think here. But
yeah,
I've been waiting for like updates and reports. Like, is Giannis? What's up with Giannis? Has he been? I thought I saw he practiced fully today, so he's on the verge of returning. So that's good news there. Harden and Kyrie are both out tonight too, I think.
Yeah, Harden for sure.
He's still out. We still got a couple more. Maybe the weekend he'll be back. I saw LeBron James had like a 3-week timetable still. He's on track to return in 3 weeks, so maybe by May we can get him back for our fantasy playoffs here. And I'm still waiting for news on SGA. It sounds like he's going to get a report maybe at the end of the week. So I don't know. It's just there's so many injuries. It's
probably going to slow play it with SGA.
Right.
DeAndre Hunter getting hurt for the second time, and now he's pretty much essentially done for the season, which really stinks because he was a lot of fun and having a good year.
Atlanta, though, man. Atlanta's been playing good ball lately.
Absolutely. I mean, Trae Young is banged up, and they lost Hunter again. They lost Reddish. I mean, they're kind of hurting for wings, but they're hotter now than they've been all year, and something is clicking for them. It's weird. It seems like the more Trae Young struggles, the better they get. I have no idea what's going on with that. But
so I saw some Bogdanovich questions in the chat room. He's been like their best player lately.
He's been super hot. Yeah, I mean, he's taking, like we just said, the wing injuries definitely opening up a lot of opportunity. And then Trae Young has missed a few games recently, and he's just been, I think he's got some sort of nagging injury, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. He might even have multiple. But Bogdan has been, he's absolutely taken control of the opportunity. He's been playing lights out for sure. Yeah, he's a guy, if someone's willing to sell him right now, he could be really interesting because Hunter's probably not coming back for the fantasy playoffs. Reddish has been injured a lot this season, and like I said, I really think these nagging Trae Young injuries are not necessarily going away anytime soon. He's been dealing with these for 2-3 weeks now, so this opportunity is absolutely there. Herter's a great player, a good player, but he's just not like a kind of an offensive centerpiece. He's more of a catch and shoot type guy. So Bogdan is really the last kind of backcourt player, along with Lou Williams, who can, do anything off the dribble.
Herter, like in a 12-man league, though, Kevin Herter needs to be owned. He's been, over the last 6 games, he's been over 20 points in all of those. He's only about 45% owned. So, like, there's, small percentage chance that he's out there for you.
Why is he? That's surprising to me. He's pretty good. And he's super consistent too.
He's not a category guy. I think that might, limit some of the ownership there too. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
But Gallinari, he's been had a hell of a march, and now he's starting to miss some games with a foot injury. Is it an ankle or a foot injury? I can't remember. But I had to let him go. I was benefiting, but looks like just too many injuries mounting up over there in Atlanta.
You and Drake have definitely been riding the Gallinari bus this year the most, and it's fun to see because Gallo, he's actually, I mean, like you said, he had a great march. He had definitely a stretch of time when Drake owned him. Looks like, oh shoot, I even owned him.
That was Schmitty that got him.
It was Schmitty that had him, yeah, not Drake. But yeah, he's been a tease all year.
I want to get to one of these questions in the chat room here. What's going on, Lucius? Thank you for hanging out. He's asking, for the rest of the season, who would you go with, TJ McConnell or Dylan Brooks in a points league? Let me pull up our handy-dandy comparison tool.
I'm going to say, before we get there, I'm going to say McConnell, but I think I want to see it. I know we talked about the Brogdon injury maybe 2 weeks ago, Kyle, maybe even last week. Sometimes this stuff blurs together a little bit, but McConnell is a super exciting piece given that situation.
So over their last 7 days, they're basically the same, 28 points per game roughly. Last 15 days, slight edge to TJ McConnell. Last 30 days is still a slight edge to McConnell. For the season, we're looking at basically neck and neck. So let's get into this a little bit here. This is a tough one.
That's a hell of a question. I mean, they are twins. I still say McConnell, but Brooks has obviously been pretty darn consistent this season, and he, especially for a points league, his just straight up scoring is very consistent.
And he's over the course of the season, he's getting about 4 more minutes per game. I don't know. Let me see the last 7 here, see if they're neck and neck. He's getting a good 6 more minutes. So this actually might push me towards Dylan Brooks here. Just look how consistent this scoring is, all these double digits, and then the fact that he can kind of trickle in and get something in almost every column. I might say I might take Dylan Brooks here. But you make a good point with Malcolm Brogdon being potentially in and out. And what are the Pacers up to right now? They're still in the play-in game, so they have a little bit of a lead here. So maybe there's not a lot of urgency to play Brogdon. So I could see McConnell kind of being a main focal point in there, but I think I'm going to roll with the minutes. And then Dylan Brooks is a good shooter. He's one of the more underrated, 2 guards, I think, in the league.
Yeah, I think I made my decision assuming Brogdon doesn't come back, or he's super sketchy, plays a game here and doesn't, rests a bunch in the fantasy playoffs. But if Brogdon comes back sooner than my assumptions, Brooks is the obvious choice. And given also, a little more positional flexibility, shooting guard especially is probably one of the hardest roster spots to fill out unless you draft a bunch of them. So Brooks is probably the safest choice for sure there.
We got some fun action going on in the chat room tonight. They're saying Jaren Jackson biggest bust award on this. We should do we can do end of season award show maybe. But so far, I would Jaren Jackson the biggest bust award.
Can you give a bust award to a player who hasn't played a game yet, like an injury related player? Like that you've been doing fantasy stuff for a long time, Kyle. So I'll let you make the call there. But I wonder if the injury, he's been injured. So does that invalidate him potentially?
I mean, he was a 7th round draft pick in this league,
right?
So maybe we give it to him with an asterisk. And I'm trying to think of anybody else that would pop out and maybe make sense that's actually played and really underperformed with that playing time.
It's a tough question because we spend so much time kind of focusing on people who are balling out.
Yeah. Let me scroll.
I wonder. Siakam's a good choice. Siakam's a decent choice. He was a pretty consensus 2nd, 3rd round pick, and he's barely holding on to top 25, top 35 status. at least in a points league.
Let me just pop over one more page here. John Collins has been kind of he really hasn't been holding up his 4th round draft value, I think. Let me see. Anybody else here? RJ Barrett really hasn't held his value, I think.
Well, Barrett was a much lower draft pick. I mean, he was, 7 to 10, rounds 7 through 10.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, I was thinking 7th round value. I don't know. This one's tough.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of like super busts this year. I'd love to hear some of your non-injury ideas, Aiden. But some other guy, Aaron Gordon, maybe, sorta. I mean, he's also. I mean, I'm not exactly surprised where he shook out, but compared to where people probably drafted him, probably a bit of a bust. Steven Adams. I mean, I hope people weren't drafting him high, but I'm sure he might have been a single-digit round guy.
Kobe White was the 9th rounder. I see. That's the thing. Like with a bust, like how can you like really label someone a bust that's like 9th, 10th round? Like it's a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we were kind of it's pretty
nitpicking. Yeah,
pretty sparse. Yeah, I think Jaren Jackson's a very obvious choice, but it's also you took the risk to draft a guy who was injured, and that bit you.
I'm seeing Hassan Whiteside's name pop up. He did come to mind when I scrolled past him. He's been just doing like absolutely nothing.
Whiteside's a really interesting one too. I mean, there was so much risk baked into Whiteside this year, given his previous like 2 or 3 years, basically since his Studley days in Miami. He's really just been such a question mark. Like he gives you kaboom games, every now and then, but he also. I mean, just look at our ownership of this guy. Like
he was a 5th round pick, drafted 54th overall in our draft. He's got a long list of teams he's been on, and he's over the last 7 days he's not really doing anything. So 14 minutes per game on the season. Yeah, it's been.
He's not getting minutes. I mean,
so we'll leave it to Whiteside.
Whiteside's a good one, I think.
But they've also been saying who is the waiver wire pickup of the year. Who's been your favorite waiver wire? I just specifically on your team.
Well, I think Malik Beasley was my last or second last pick. So in a 10-team league, I think Malik Beasley's a decent candidate. For me, right now, I'm so infatuated with Satoransky.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even really doing that great. I thought he was doing so much better, and then we looked at his stats last week, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's nothing special. But he's kind of steady Eddie for me right now, and I'm enjoying it. And Zeller's been fun. Royce O'Neal. I mean, my team is full of rando waiver wire guys, but I think probably for me, I'd say over the course of the season, O'Neal. He's been the guy I've had the longest. I picked him up, maybe week 3, 4. And he's not great either. He's just, but
yeah,
30 points here, 18 points there. It all kind of evens out to a low 20 average. What about you? Who's your guy?
Well, I got to side with my guy Justin right now because I mean Kevin Porter Jr. has been pretty nice. He started playing again. I mean, you can't really find a guy that's going to get 30 or 40 points every other game off the waiver wire. But if there was maybe one more guy, I think it might be Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young, even with limited, like his minutes are like 20, 24 a game right now, but he's still putting up awesome numbers. And he's been I haven't even had to think about dropping him in like 2 months. So I might say Thaddeus Young could be one of those guys. Otherwise,
that's a good one.
I got to give it to Kevin Porter Jr. or Thaddeus Young. Those would be my 2 options. But man, my favorite player to be picking up right now, if you're in 12-man leagues, is Dorian Finney-Smith. Just look at some of these numbers from Dorian the last couple weeks here, especially these last 6 games or so. He's just getting tons of minutes. He doesn't even need to score a lot of points just because he's a good rebounder and he's a really good defender. So he kind of always just has like a really high floor, even if he doesn't score a lot of points. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's getting me buckets and points come playoff time. So keep an eye on Dorian Finney-Smith. So Let me see what else we
18% owned. My goodness. Yeah.
yeah,
Go run to your waiver wire and grab this guy.
pretty silly. And then I guess I did make a little watch list, but I've been trying to filter and find like new interesting ways to find players. And I mean, one of the easiest ways that I found was if you simply, well, I'm gonna filter by everybody, and you just hit this plus minus here. You're gonna see the most picked up people of late. So this is just kind of ESPN stats. Kelly Olynyk. This is the one that got away for me. I dumped him when he got moved over to Houston, and it's one of the things that I'm regretting right now because he had this like 11 and a 9, and then I let him go. I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens in Houston. And since he got to Houston, this is pretty damn good fantasy production. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Wait.
he's increased, I think when they do this in the percents, the plus 18.6, I think that's over the last 7 days. So like, this is probably the last chance you're going to get to be able to pick up Kelly Olynyk in a 10 or 12 man league. So Houston Rockets, we've talked about these teams that aren't really good, just having to play their young talent and see what happens. And Kelly Olynyk is, I don't know. I mean, it's a garbage team, but he's being a very core piece of what they're doing over there. So he's someone interesting. Go ahead.
I think probably 5 of the 10, pickups of the year or waiver of the year candidates are probably from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Jayshawn Tate would be another decent, guy you could throw in that mix. Oklahoma City has a bunch of those guys too. I mean, I was enjoying the Dort Pozolinski rotation because Dort, he would play great. He'd get hurt. Pozolinski would come in and start for him. And then Dort would come back, and I just kept flip flopping those two for like 3 weeks. It felt like.
How do we say his name?
I'm still not sure. I really am not 100% sure. I just say Pozolinski because it rolls off my tongue well, and it kind of looks like his name. But he's one of those more difficult names for me. And there's no Z in the beginning, so it's not Pozolinski. There's really no L anywhere, so maybe it's
Pokuševski.
Pokuševski sounds right.
That's how I've been saying it.
Yeah, I apologize, Mr. Pokuševski. Yeah,
he gets
Poku. That's fun.
Straight to the point. Yeah, we'll call him Poku.
Yeah, I like that too. I've been butchering his name for months now, so I need a nickname. So Poku is pretty fun. I like that.
And then I guess while we're looking at these Oklahoma City Thunder kids, they've just been. It's like a wave, and they just kind of go in spurts. People have been dropping Moses Brown. He's actually down about 20% over the last 7 days, and he had a 12.5 point game the other night, 19 minutes, 6.6 boards. I've actually picked up Tony Bradley because Tony Bradley outshined him by a good margin the other night here on the 10th against Philadelphia. And I don't know if that's because it was Tony Bradley going up against his former team. But it was a pretty massive game against Philadelphia. He went off for 16, 14, and 3 blocks.
Wow.
And just looking at the games that he's played since he's got there, like I don't think we're ever going to see 14 or 18 minutes for Tony Bradley the rest of the way. You're probably going to see these like 20 to 25 minutes. I think you're probably going to see 24, 25 minutes per game the rest of the way. So that does, in my opinion, it hurts Moses Brown a little bit. And then like 16 and 14, that's going to be, they probably had some kind of eye-opening Tony Bradley experience there, and they might have to keep playing him. So I don't know. I'm very interested in Tony Bradley right now. Anybody else like on the Thunder right now that you think can help us besides Poku? He's been kind of day to day here, but I think once he gets back healthy, I think he needs to be owned. Anybody else here for you?
Well, I mean, a lot of these guys are super, and I know they're owned in our league, but I think Williams and Dort and Malden, they've all had their moments. Dort is probably the most consistent of them, but he's also pretty injury prone this season. Poku has been really awesome when Dort has been injured. The few games where Dort and Poku have played a larger amount of minutes together, Poku does okay, but he definitely, for whatever reason, thrives when Dort is out. Ty Jerome, I've owned at times this year. and he's been pretty fun. But he's also, when he's not cooking, he's pretty inconsistent. So there's you can really tell the teams that are kind of tanking, and there's a lot of fantasy opportunity, but it seems to kind of follow the hot hand mantra. So I just, Kyle, you show us those 7-game trends and those 15-game trends a lot. And when I'm looking at teams, when I'm looking at players to pick up, I'm looking at that all the time, but especially with Houston, especially with OKC, just follow the hot hand and see where your chips fall. There's a lot of middling talent on this roster that's young, and they just want to see who they have. But I think Bradley's an interesting piece too, and just follow the minutes.
And I like the Dort call quite a bit. He's only 14% owned, so that seems like a 12-man league. Sure, I'll take Lugan's Dort as my worst player. I think that sounds pretty good to me. And then
he's definitely coming back right now. So go grab him.
It's his only 1 game back. I did see my guy Mike Butter here ask us about the Cavs guy. Let me show you. He's talking about Isaiah Hartenstein.
Oh my gosh. We're really missing Drake, Mr. Butter, because he's just our Cavs expert. But we did have some fun Hartenstein conversations a little while ago.
Yeah, we've been monitoring this. I don't know, first game here that he kind of dips a little bit. Only 13 fantasy points, 22 minutes, 10.6 rebounds. I'd have to look at the box score and see what the issue was or see if someone came back. But again, we're expecting Jarrett Allen to be back in the mix at some point this weekend, so that's probably going to make things a little worse. But then you got Dean Wade, who's been equally impressive, and his minutes have just been on a steady uptrend here. He's topping off over 30 minutes per game lately. So I don't know how do we evaluate a Dean Wade and Isaiah Hartenstein for the rest of the season?
It's complicated, man. Kevin Love is back. You have Jarrett Allen coming back. You would assume, a normal Larry Nance. What's Larry Nance's status? He might be
illness.
So he looks like he's probably coming back too. Those are their primary guys. But on the other side of the coin, they're tanking, I guess you could say. They're not really competing. I don't necessarily know if they're trying to win games, and so if that's the case, then Kevin Love immediately could get nixed from the rotation. But he is playing a lot recently, so coming back, since he came back, he's been very much part of their rotation and even played a back-to-back. So I'm not exactly sure what their approach is, but as long as Love is playing and healthy, I imagine he's probably their number 1 post option. And then Allen seemed to me, based on what's happened this year in Cleveland and what Drake has told us about, I feel like Jarrett Allen is kind of their starting center of the future. So, and Larry Nance is probably going to be that primary guy off the bench. So in that scenario, which is what I assume will happen when all of them are healthy, if all of them are healthy, Wade and Hartenstein get a pretty big kick in the pants because they get moved down the totem pole pretty far.
So we're gonna play America's favorite game. Real quick here, we're gonna get Mr. Basley up here. Come on down. We got Dorian Finney. I don't know why. He's a fun player to watch. He's one of my I don't know. He's like a guilty pleasure player that you just want to root for.
They're all guys we kind of looked at a little bit, from the different teams we focused on today.
At one point, we looked at them at various points tonight, and over the last 7 days, Dorian Finney-Smith averaging 29.3, Will Barton 27, and Darius Basley 25.5. So just in the last 7 days, Dorian Finney-Smith, Barton, Basley. Last 15 days, it's like a tie between Finney-Smith and Barton. Last 30 days, edge to Barton. So now with this extra opportunity Jamal Murray, I'm thinking Jamal Murray. But for some reason, could the absence of Jamal Murray help a Will Barton just either get more shots up or maybe some more assists fall his way? Something like that could happen. So I like Barton. I think I'm keeping Finney-Smith and Barton. We're going to let Basley go.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd be fine starting Finney-Smith or Barton at this point. I don't know who you prefer.
I'd probably take Finney Smith. I think Dorian has, this Mavericks offense has really figured its stuff out, and they're really clicking. And Luca is just, driving the car like a professional race car driver. He's absolutely fantastic at setting the table for all his guys. And Finney Smith is really, he's the minutes have been there all season for him. He's been, I think he's averaging over 32 a game for the season. I mean, he's definitely a massive part of what they're trying to do. And he's a great fit for their offense. And I think as long as Luka is cooking, Finney Smith gets really awesome offensive opportunities. And you pointed it out earlier, Kyle, when you talked about him. He's got a good floor because even when he doesn't score, he rebounds well. He gives you some defensive stats every once in a while. Barton, I think his role is probably pretty steady with the injury to Murray. He's not really a point guard for them, and so I don't really see him coming in and handling the ball and setting the offense and stuff. So I think his role kind of remains unchanged. But maybe he gets more minutes and maybe he gets more shot attempts. And the shot attempts, I think, is a very likely scenario. He gets more shot attempts with the loss of Murray. So he could get a little uptick, but it feels like Finney Smith is hot, and I like to ride the hot hand.
And I don't know, like Dallas Maverick players have been of interest to me because, again, I keep coming back to the schedule. And, week 18, like that's the first round of the playoffs. You're getting 5 Dallas Mavericks games. You're also getting 5 OKC and 5 Toronto. So keep Basley on the back burner, maybe. We'll see what happens. I just think OKC, man, we're going to be talking about them in 2 weeks, and we've had all this season to kind of digest what's going on here. So we're going to have to get some pretty correct OKC takes in a couple weeks. But again, 13 playoff games in these 3 weeks here. So I like collecting Dallas players.
That's a tough. All these trash teams, tanking teams, underperforming teams, whatever you want to call them, they're such a crapshoot, and guys, they just rest guys randomly, and so it's going to be. Maybe we'll all give a different OKC take. Previous, the Tuesday before week 18, and we'll see who's right, Kyle.
Well, here's this. I mean, we've technically, me and you, we played in that championship 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I win? We were playing garbage players from the Chicago Bulls. That really was the difference in that week. So that's just thinking about that all seasons made me really focus on these kind of trash teams, because those are going to be the players that you're picking up, to get to the championship in the championship week. Those are the players that in the teams that you really needed to monitor and get the most, because it's really easy to just collect studs and just always, just play the best players. But it's those kind of turning the stones over that's really going to help separate you when you get to the playoffs. So
absolutely, and a lot of these studs are on teams that have locked in their playoff position, and they don't necessarily. They want to, maybe get a day off, an extra day off to, just in preparation for potentially a long playoff run. And so, absolutely, those trash teams. Or, like a really good team that just decides we're going to rest a bunch of people. You got to monitor the news, you got to monitor the minutes, and obviously watch anything Kyle Bauer's putting out about fantasy basketball, because he's gonna keep you up to date.
We got one more start bench cut here. I think Aiden's trying to do this for like tonight. I don't know if he's playing DFS or something, but Olynyk, Marcus Morris Sr., and Bojan Bogdanovic. I'm playing Kelly Olynyk. Like I think these numbers are, and he even acknowledges here that Kawhi Leonard's out tonight. I think I'm still going to ride with Kelly Olynyk. He's just been too hot to bench. So for me, I'm going to start Olynyk. I'm interested in Morris with Kawhi out though, but you just see this, feast or famine with all these numbers. So I think I'm gonna bench Morris, and then with Bojan here. Kind of the same thing. He's probably got a little bit higher floor. So if you're looking for someone tonight, sure, Morris would be the guy, but maybe long-term Bojan's probably the better play. I don't know, John. How do you evaluate this?
I kind of think about it the same way. Maybe like if you need a guy for this week, maybe Marcus Morris Sr. If you need a guy for the long haul, I go Bojan or Bogdanovic. But Olynyk is our starter, obviously.
So, I don't know. Interesting. I wanted to see, what do we got for games tonight here? So the Brooklyn and Minnesota game already happened. That got rescheduled from from yesterday. We got this game is just about to tip off. It looks like, huh?
Yeah, 6:30 start time for. I thought those were
Oh,
6:30
it's
start
already
time.
yeah. This game's already going here.
Yeah, so we got a couple games cooking.
Morris got 8-2 already.
Oh wow.
George, um, so
Oh,
Brogdon's back in the lineup tonight.
oh,
Cares.
interesting. Yeah, I didn't think Brogdon would be back already.
Vert's got 13 in the first quarter. Interesting.
Yeah, I take back my entire Dylan Brooks versus TJ McConnell take. Let's go Brooks all day on that one.
Let's see what else we got here. Aiden saying, "Look at Montrez. Should I drop him for Trent?" Oh man,
Gary Trent, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should drop most players for Gary Trent right now. He's absolutely going off.
Gary Trent, one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, if you have more centers than you need, I would absolutely do it.
So I'm not sure, Aiden, like what specific league this is for. Is it like an 8-man or a 10-man, like, or what's your point system? But the last 15 days, it's not even close. Montrezl Harrell to Gary Trent, it's not close. Was this the game? Yeah, he got ejected in this game, so that's why the numbers are pretty much depressed here. But yeah, we also got Aaron Keenan asking, should I drop Montrez? So John, let's play a game here. Like, would you rather have Dorian Finney-Smith or Montrezl Harrell?
Yeah, I'd probably rather have a lot of players than Montrezl Harrell right now. Especially if you're in a 10-team league. There has to be someone out there on your waiver wire that's better than Montrezl Harrell. I think the only, and now to be fair to Montrez, he's got that power forward center, position flexibility, which is very nice. I mean, you can take if you're in a points league, like a 3-5 point loss on their scoring, and their points, their overall fantasy points per game average, to have that additional flexibility, positional flexibility. I'm totally for that. But if you're pretty stocked on centers and your power forward situation is fine, I mean, Harrell is incredibly expendable to me.
I picked up Reggie Jackson this week because it sounds like Patrick Beverley's going to be out for a while. So like, would you go get a guy like Reggie Jackson right now? Just look at his, even the last few games here, 25, 47, 15, 35, 16, 13, like we want to get that floor a little bit higher here. But again, Patrick Beverley's out with a hand, it looks like, until May. And then Rajon Rondo's got a hip right now. So this is going to be a heavy, almost probably 30 minutes a game for Reggie Jackson going forward. Would you take him over Montrez here? That seems to be a popular question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jackson is definitely a hot hand right now. He's a lot of fun, and not only Beverly out, but we just heard from our main man Aiden that Kawhi's out right now. I'm sure Kawhi's not going to be out long term, but it sounds like a really good situation for Reggie Jackson. And I've watched him. I've watched a couple Clippers games just because they're always pretty regularly on national TV, given their the late game a lot of the time, and the ones I've caught recently, Reggie Jackson is not only is he putting up points and stuff, but he looks good. He looks like he fits into that offense and knows just it's a good situation for him. So I like Reggie Jackson a lot right now. As long as Beverly's out, I would ride him. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of guys on this list right now that I would argue you would want Montrezl Harrell over, perhaps Cole Anthony, but beyond that, I think I maybe take all these guys over Harrell, unless you need that center, or that center power forward flexibility is important to you. Like, for example, my roster, I don't have a lot of centers. I didn't draft a lot of centers. Harrell was and I took Zion early, but really after that, I didn't really take a lot of power forwards either. And so Harrell's been a really actually instrumental piece to my roster design with that center power forward flexibility. But outside of that, his value is very low right now.
Aiden threw out a good name here. I've been keeping my eye on him, but I missed him. He's on your team, Corey Joseph.
Yeah, I lost a fantasy game because I forgot to wake up at noon, and I assumed Trae Young was playing, which was just a terrible idea, and I lost by like 10 or 20 points, and I could have swapped Corey Joseph in for Trae Young, but
Oh man.
oh well. But yeah, Corey's been balling out. I kind of just, we were talking about this last week. I had to decide between a couple different Pistons because they had 5 games last week. And so I had no idea what I was doing. I was basically just shooting from the hip, and I was like, okay, I'll just take Corey Joseph. I feel like he's the bench guard. I feel like, Killian Hayes and all their starting guards are in flux all the time. But Corey Joseph, he has been pretty healthy. He's coming off the bench, pretty much his entire NBA career. It just felt like his position in the rotation is pretty solidified, and he's been really good. I mean, especially good, and I think a function of that is the injuries and the turnover and all that at their starting point guard position. Corey Joseph is really kind of the de facto floor general for that team, even though he comes off the bench.
And again, that Detroit, it's just one of those teams that you gotta kind of check out some of these bottom feeders because there's fantasy points to be had there, and all of a sudden you might be a guy that's going to average 30+ points per game for a little while here. Definitely a player that can help us out here. So this is I've seen that this is the trending tab. I don't care for it as much because I like to see like the actual points.
Yeah,
but it's a good ranking system here to see what the rankings are. You can kind of see a couple other things here. But Aiden was asking to hook up Nerlens Noel. Would you rather have Nerlens Noel or Montrezl Harrell? That one's close. But Noel's starting to come back into our fantasy good graces again here these last 3 games.
probably take Harrell because of the flexibility. But I mean, if Noel, I also just don't expect Noel to be able to keep this up the last 2 games. But if I'm proven wrong, if Noel has 1 or 2 more really good games, I'd go Noel all the way.
Interesting. So, and then the thing with Montrezl Harrell is, like, I'm gonna go to the Lakers by themselves right now. I mean, rest of season for Harrell, it gets me a little bit nervous with all the guys that will be coming back. You gotta think Drummond's gonna continue to get more run as the season goes on here. Why isn't there? We gotta click on that. So the current state of the Lakers here. Drummond's averaging about 24 minutes per game here, and Harrell just 15 minutes per game. I don't know, man. So is this a hot cut, or can you try to sell him? Can you try and trade him right now? Or are these numbers like, if you open this up and you see a 5 and a -2, you're just like, not take this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely see if you could swap him. Maybe sell him for someone averaging 25 to 30 points a game. Try to find a team that needs a center. Again, I mean, I really do think that center power forward flexibility has some value in and of itself. But yeah, I would absolutely try to trade him because, I mean, Gasol, Drummond, Davis. Obviously, Davis is hurt right now, but like when those 3 are healthy, it feels like Trez, who I thought was a key piece of this team, but at this point, he really feels like the odd man out.
Well, maybe they're also kind of giving him a little bit of a break before the playoffs. You just got this new toy in Andre Drummond here. Let's get him acclimated and playing, more minutes with these new players. So there could be something like that going on here. So you actually own Montrezl Harrell in this league. So like, has this been a concern for you over the last few weeks or so, or last few days?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to ride him and ride, until Davis comes back. The Drummond thing was a really big, really bad for Harrell and his value. But I mean, Drummond got hurt and Davis is still out, and you just kind of assumed Harrell would be just fine just because the minutes were going to be there. But even outside of that game where his ejection, you see the minutes really aren't super high for Harrell. So I don't know. He's really underperformed for me. Not so much this entire season, but since the Davis injury, I've been a little surprised, and we'll see what happens. But I think he's like I said, I just feel like he's the odd man out. But if Davis doesn't come back until right before the NBA playoffs, And Drummond already got hurt a little bit for the Lakers. Maybe, I mean, he's not always the most durable player, so who knows? Harrell could win you games, and potentially even playoff games if things work out for him. But Dave, I would monitor. If you are a Harrell owner like me, you probably want to be continuously monitoring the Anthony Davis situation, like me.
So it's because we had a couple questions on like, would you rather pick up this guy and drop Harrell? So if you could find someone that's averaging like 25 to 26 points off the waiver wire, would you just cold cut, get rid of him?
Probably not. And again, like I discussed, he's a big part of my roster design, given his center eligibility, and I have a lower amount of centers and a lower amount of power forwards, so he's really quite important for me. But once Davis comes back, I think I would cut him.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So maybe I think the correct thing to do is to look for a trading partner first. Maybe
Yes.
That would probably be the best way to do it. So we're going.
I think and like you said, there are a lot of people asking Montrez questions, so that probably means he's not as essential to their roster as he is to mine. So yeah, I mean, if you're in a 10-team league, like I said a little earlier, I really think he is super expendable right now. Unless you need centers and or power forwards, in which case there is that value there. But outside of that, outside of the positional piece, you could do better.
So we're going on about 46 minutes here. We got maybe 15 minutes left. Was there any specific teams or anything like you want to make sure we look at tonight, John?
I didn't really come prepared with anything, but maybe I wonder if there is a team we haven't looked at in a little while. I feel like we, over the course of time, we cover most of these teams. Maybe we could just take a quick peek at the standings. We do that a lot. But if you have ideas, Kyle, let's roll with them, because you're a great point guard.
I've been getting into the habit of before I'm sitting here before the show starts, I'm just making a watch list really quick in case we know what players here. And the Charlotte Hornets, Jalen McDaniels, interesting player here. He's been getting a lot of minutes. 3 straight games here, 29, 31, and 32. The points of, the one game fell off here, but you get a range of 21.75 points all the way to 42. My interest has peaked a little bit here.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it. That's a good little 3-game trend here, but let me just open up the Charlotte Hornets and let's take a look under them here. And we'll go to take a peek. Isn't Gordon Hayward out for a while? Is this a direct correlation to Gordon Hayward?
I don't know Jalen McDaniels. I know a Jaden McDaniels. I'm wondering if I'm mixing these two players up, but I'm pretty sure there's a Jaden McDaniels who was drafted this year. But Jalen is this guy. I'm not sure I know who this is, and but he's a forward. He's obviously, maybe plays a little big, but it looks like he probably, there probably is a bit of a correlation. Also, because you're on last 7 right now, right? My gut would have said, with an injury to Hayward, Bridges would be a big beneficiary, and that looks pretty obvious. 38 minutes a game, that's a lot of minutes. But then the Martin brothers, the twins, I thought maybe they would pick it up a little bit. But obviously Jalen McDaniels is a big part of the Gordon replacement plan, the Hayward replacement plan, and he's playing some power forward minutes too on top of that. So he's as long as Hayward is out, he seems like a good part of the rotation.
So I wish there's the news. So he's expected to miss 4 weeks. So he came out on April 3rd. That puts him out basically until first week of May. And this is going to be, we're sitting here at 16.5% owned. You get a month's run here, man. I guess you get 3 full weeks left, I would suppose. But that's going to make, PJ Washington should play better. I don't know what his day-to-day injury is. But even Miles Bridges, if you're in a 10-man league, he's only 72% owned. Devontae Graham, he's probably owned. Terry Rozier is going to be owned. But again, Cody Zeller, what's he been doing? His minutes have been weird lately, but he's been productive with low minutes, so that's encouraging. Um, Nothing really else presents. I mean, what's up with Malik Monk? He was supposed to be the savior here. At least 2 weeks with no Malik Monk. So it's Jalen McDaniels, man.
Yeah, I did not realize how devastated the Hornets were with injury. That's not a team that I monitor so closely, but yeah, McDaniels is a really awesome piece, for look, maybe even the next month, I mean, even if everyone else comes back and Hayward doesn't, he might still be a part of this. But yeah, there's a lot of wing minutes available. And the Martin brothers are not picking them up, which again, kind of would have been what I would have guessed would happen. So, but I'm glad you called out Miles Bridges, 70% owned. That is, for as well as he's playing right now and the volume of minutes he's getting, that is criminal. If there are people paying attention in leagues right now, and you're in a semi-competitive or maybe slightly less competitive league, Bridges is likely available, and I would go snag him because he's a league winner. I mean, he could easily be a league winner if he's available on your waiver wire right now.
Did you see his dunk over Capella?
Yeah, there was. I was watching Stephen A. Smith's Sports Center yesterday, or maybe I think it was yesterday. And he was saying, "Sorry, Anthony Edwards, but this is the dunk of the year."
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it happen live, but it was. I definitely watched a bunch of the highlights, and it's a fun one. We could watch it now if you want.
Yeah, I'll play it one more time here for the people. Hopefully, get some. The quality needs to get rebooted here, but. Let's see.
I mean, that's over Capella too, who is is a well-renowned shot blocker and rim defender.
It's just silly. So that might be, as of right now, I think that would be my vote for dunk of the year. But I don't know. There's so many interesting names to pick up here. I just wanted to point out at the standings too. Look at this rat's nest. Charlotte, I mean, they're riding on rims right now, man. Like the tires are flat. Hello for a little bit yet. No Gordon Hayward for a month. Malik 2 weeks. You got guys that John's never heard about being fantasy superstars in the making right now. And the Hornets are the 6th seed. They're currently 9 games behind first, but you look at what's behind them. The Celtics are tied with them. The Knicks only 9.5. The Hornets, man, they're on like alert right now. They could potentially drop down to like Bulls Raptors territory, which is a couple of like 2 games. If they lose 2 games in a row, all of a sudden things are going south pretty quickly here. So
their best case scenario now is the play-in game.
Did you hear Luka's comments on the play-in game?
Who?
Luka? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Because he was just like, I don't see the point of having us play 72 games just to have a play-in game, lose 2 games, and then miss the playoffs. He doesn't like that aspect of it.
Well, I mean, I don't give a shit. He's not a fan.
Right.
I mean, it's not. That's kind of that's a slightly confusing take, but at the same time, I think the play. There is a little bit of merit to that. Like the regular, you play these regular season games, and especially because it seems like the NBA, with the COVID this year, we thought maybe a bunch of teams would miss, there'd be one team that plays 62 and the rest of the teams play 72 or whatever, and it would be kind of weird. But that really hasn't happened. The NBA has done a pretty darn good job, and they've made some good decisions to make sure to get all their games in. So I think the argument is reasonable, but it's entertaining, isn't it? Like we just thinking about. I think we were discussing. I don't know if it was live on air last week or if it was off air, but we were discussing the kind of the rules for the play-in tournament, and it's just fun. It's fun to think about. Like it's unique. It's interesting. It's a cool wrinkle, and I think the fans are going to just eat it up. I mean, I'm super excited for it. I love these do or die scenarios. Those are, I think that's what makes March Madness, the NCAA tournament, so much, so interesting for people who don't even like basketball. It's a cool addition to the NBA playoff structure, I think, and it gives some other teams a chance to make the dance.
It gets some younger players some more national exposure, which is a great. Like, if someone hits like a buzzer beater to like win one of those playing games, like that's going to be the highlight of the day. But I was going to say, I think this week on ESPN, just because I have the TV on while I'm just at work, I'm just low volume. But it was the first time that I saw that they actually put the play-in game race on the TV. Like they had the graphic, they showed 7-8, and then they had the line,
Yeah.
the 9-10, and a couple games behind it. But all of a sudden, we're watching that now, and that's I don't know, man. I think this could be something really popular and really good for the NBA going forward. And they might even have
Absolutely.
to like, I don't know, they might have to like let this thing evolve a little bit and maybe get a little bit more fun, even. But super exciting.
I love it personally. You love it. Yeah, we're the NBA's number one fans. So if we like it, it ain't going away.
And they're getting what? How many more games of revenue out of this? Um,
Yeah, getting a couple more games, and then also like your top seeds you get a couple extra days off. I mean, I think it's you're no disrespect, but those 7 to 10 seeds, they're just whoever makes the playoffs, they're just you don't expect them to go very far. So I think it's just it makes sense on a lot of different levels.
um,
Thinking about the NCAA tournament too. I mean, obviously the kind of apples and oranges, especially the playing games. But the teams that go into the NCAA tournament. Think about UCLA this year. There's been VCU teams in the past. The teams that take advantage of that playing game. They get a little bit. Just get the tournament feel. Just get the groove down just a little earlier. Go in to the next game with a little bit of experience, a little bit of mojo. Somehow, and sometimes that translates for these playing teams that make the field and makes the next game more competitive, or even they go on a little bit of a run. And so, I'll be interested to see if how this impacts the winning percentage of 7 and 8 seeds, or whatever teams make it from the play-in games and in their first round matchups.
I don't think there's that much like just looking at the standings and who's going to be there. Like you can make a case for any team 7 through 10 in both conferences to say that like they can legitimately be the 7th seed or whatever. They could win that little mini tournament. So I just think the competition it's really unique, and I think it's going to be really good. They get more TNT dollars. They get more visual audience there for them. So it's a really good situation. But I don't know.
Sure.
We got 3 minutes left on the show. Any final thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
Just injury. I mean, we talked about it pretty much most of this podcast, but the injuries are nuts. I mean, just opening up the Hornets and seeing half their roster with an O or a DTD, it's disgusting. This is the time of year where you really have to pay extra attention. And I hope, hopefully our show and some of the other work Kyle does is helping you out. And there's some other good basketball resources out there, but just, if you're fighting for a playoff spot, if you can pay a little bit extra attention right now and follow those 7 and 15 day trends like Kyle kind of tries to show you, and keep this thing is really cool too, this schedule grid, and there are some other schedule grids out there too, but just keep the schedule in mind. I mean, just be thoughtful, take the lessons you've learned throughout the season, try to apply them right now, because these injuries, I think there's got to be so few fantasy managers right now that are avoiding this injury bug.
Mm-hmm.
So, there might be teams that were, guaranteed to make the playoffs in your league that are a little more vulnerable right now, and they might lose a couple games. So, if you're fighting for a playoff spot or you're on the fringe, this is the magic hour, if you will.
So my final word of advice for today is I've highlighted 7 teams here in orange. And now the Dallas is like the only team on this list that has a white box, which is 3 games. But for the most part, all of these teams have 20 games remaining, at least 20 games remaining. And they all have a minimum of 4 games per week, just with Dallas being the one asterisk. But I put them on the list because they do have 13 games in the playoffs. So adding players from Dallas, Memphis, San Antonio, Washington, Phoenix, Charlotte, Jalen McDaniels here, and then Chicago, which is my last talking point. What's going on with Chicago? Is there just so many new pieces there that it's taking them a little bit time to get acclimated and play with each other? Because they look really good in moments, but they're still not winning games and not making up any ground in the East. I don't know. Anything on Chicago?
Yeah, I've watched a couple Bulls games lately because I actually was lucky enough to catch the 50 pointer from Levine I'm a big I think we're all Vucevic fans in our league, and so I like to watch him a little bit, and it's been interesting watching him acclimate. But probably the most confusing team in the league to me, because they had, as far as I'm aware, they really don't have a lot of injuries. They've been relatively intact most of the season. Levine's having a hell of a year. You just touched on Thad Young. Thad Young's playing really good basketball, some of the better basketball of his entire career. And he's had a decade-long NBA career. And they have some pieces that they make sense and they seem to fit together. And Vucevic is a good player. And yet, to your point, they're not winning any games. The bottom of the East is not good, and so it shouldn't be that hard to make up a little bit of ground. But they can't. They don't play great defense. Vucevic and Levine, they suffer from kind of this. They're very similar. They're incredible on offense, and they don't necessarily contribute too much on defense. And so they're getting ran over by other teams. Levine scores 50 points and they get outscored. They end up losing by like 10. I mean, it makes no sense, but at the same time, bad defensive teams can often be plagued with lots of losses when you don't expect them to lose. And those are the teams you're like, oh, that's a super talented team. I don't know what's going on. But I would pin most of their problems on defense. And I've watched them a little bit recently. And so I know, when you make a bunch of trades, sometimes it's hard for the system to, kind of coalesce and come together. But even still, it doesn't look right on the defensive end. And that's whenever their downfall comes, that's going to be it.
And I mean, just communication, building new communications with new players. And sometimes, like with the Bucks, we watch them struggle for the first month or two just without, players that haven't been there for a while. So I don't know. I think there's still time for them to get things together, but I had to drop Larry Markkinen today. That felt a little weird, but I don't know. I'm keeping my eye on Chicago, but I don't know, man. I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. Tuesday Night Hangout will be back next Tuesday. Hopefully Drake can join us. He's been a busy guy lately, but we'll do our best to get him on the show. But I don't know. Thank you guys.
I have one last thought, because you got me thinking about Bulls, and I talked about Satoransky earlier. That 50-point Levine game, I watched that game. In the first half, Satoransky had 0 points, like in made baskets or made free throws or anything, 0 points, and he had like 15, 20 fantasy points. He had like 6 assists in the first quarter. I love Satoransky, dude. I could talk about him all day. But anyway, you were trying to end the show.
No worries. I mean, yeah, check out Tomas Satoransky's his numbers, man. If you're in a 12-man league, I think that's the correct league size to own him. 10-man leagues, it's a little close, but 12-man for sure. Check him out. But we'll be back next Tuesday. You guys have a good night. Thank you for your time. We'll see you in another video. Thanks. Peace.